Don Teuscher. I'm at Brigham Young University. I've been there for 4 years now. Just finished my fourth year. And I've been using Studiocode for basically 4 years, mainly using it within my teacher preparation courses, which has now turned into research as well. So I developed the code windows, and then which are basically what I want the students to kind of focus on. And so it's getting the students to recognize certain things that I want them to be aware of in their teaching. And so I pretty much create the code window, and then they just worry about trying to identify different instances that that mirror what we're trying to get them to look at. And then they actually rate those instances on a scale of 4, 3, 2, 1. That way they can kind of see how they're doing in comparison to the definition that we've given them. And a lot of times it's kind of eye-opening the first time they do it, because they come back and will say, Dr. Teacher, what happens if we don't have any instances in this category? I'm like, well, hopefully you've learned something. Yeah, I need to change my teaching. And that's exactly what we're trying to do, is help them change their teaching and recognize things that they're not aware of. So their very first assignment, which I call their pre-assessment, which allows me to kind of see where they are in their understanding, is they go in, and I've created a database that has explicit clips that they don't know this, but generally good instances of teachers doing these different practices. And they go in and pick 3 of each practice, and then they have to go into the transcription window and provide a justification for the rating that they provide that instance based on the definitions we've given them. So that's their first assignment with Studiocode. It's also a way for them to kind of get to know the program and how it works and what are the different features that I'm going to have them use during the semester. So it kind of serves 2 purposes: in one, getting them to know the software, but 2, allowing them to kind of see some good instances. And it helps me as a teacher formatively be able to say, okay, they're getting the definition, or we need to re-talk about this. So my students work in groups in a lesson study. So there's usually 3 to 4 students in a group that prepare a lesson. And then they come to class, and the day they come to class is when I tell them who out of the 4 is teaching. So they don't know who's teaching it until the day of the lesson. And then all 4 of them will actually code that video. So in one case, it is the teacher that's coding themselves, but in the other case, they're coding a peer, but then they alternate. And so each student eventually will code themselves. Yeah, the first time they do it, they're stressed because they don't like to watch video of themselves. They're embarrassed. All those feelings come out. But by the end, they tell me that the video was out of the whole entire program that they've gone through, that's been their biggest learning experience, was to use the video. So I feel like the nervousness and the embarrassment and that kind of stuff ends up wearing off pretty quickly. Even just the wearing of the microphone during the lesson wears off within the first lesson. They don't even realize that they have a microphone on, and it's one of their favorite assignments to go do, is to code their video to kind of see how they've improved, where they've improved, what they still need to work on. And yet it's not me giving them the feedback, it's themselves giving themselves feedback, which releases me to do other things. So in 377, the methods course, halfway through, I'll start introducing the iCoda to them, where it's basically the same code window that they have on Studiocode. It's just that they can actually code during the lesson. And it frees up a little bit more time for them, that they don't have to go and watch the whole video, because that gets transported in as their timeline. And then they can go in and adjust or change a code, or after they've reviewed them. So it helps them the process go a little bit faster. But then I've also started doing it with my student teachers. At the very beginning of student teaching, all the student teachers will get together and watch each other. along with the university supervisor, along with the mentor teacher. So in the back of the classroom, there's 3 student teachers, university supervisor, and the mentor teacher, all watching this one student teacher teach. And all of them go through this process. So in that case, I'll have each of the student teachers with an iPad, and they're coding for these same practices we've done in 377. And then we do the same exact thing at the end of the student teaching experience so that they can kind of see how much they've grown, but they're also doing the coding as well. And then what I've done is, as far as research goes, I stack the timelines so I can see all 4 of my student teachers' timelines and make comparisons between, okay, are they seeing similar things? Are they not seeing similar things? Where do I need to kind of revise my framework and revise my definitions? And so I think would be very powerful eventually when I get to it is to actually be able to put those timelines together right after the lesson and be able to talk about it in the debriefing with all the student teachers to kind of get at these different practices that we're working on. I also use the database feature. And so at the beginning, that where they do the pre-assessment, that's a database. But at the very end of the semester, what I have the students do is they go through all of their videos. So they have 6 videos, 6 or 7 videos that they've analyzed. And they have to choose, in essence, they're creating a portfolio of video instances that are their best for each of the practices. And they have to put those into a database and turn it in as kind of a final project to show, here's how I've grown and this is where I'm at the end of the semester. And the students really like doing that because, one, it allows them to see how far they've actually improved, because they start watching their first video and they're like, oh my gosh, I was horrible. And by the 6th video, they're like, oh, I'm actually improving. And so they see the improvement, which is nice because it builds their confidence. So they use the database feature to put those in, and then they submit it, and I use that as an assignment to kind of see where they are. And that includes their transcription, it includes their ratings. And like I said, some of their lessons are peers that they're reflecting on. So part of the requirement is that I make them put in at least one instance in each of the practices have to be themselves. So that gets away from them avoiding putting in any of theirs and saying, oh, my peers are better than I am. They have to actually put in their own instances of themselves teaching, which is kind of nice because then, I mean, I don't know if it'll ever happen, but principals, you could go in and say, here's a selection of me teaching, and these are some of my best examples. And it's nice because the principal could just flip through them and they could be different lessons, but it really gives it a real demonstration of what the teacher's doing and how the teacher can teach versus them just saying, oh yeah, I can do this, when we really don't know if they can. I think the first thing is just, one, getting in and playing with it. And the more you play with it, the more you kind of see how you can use it in your work. I think I found that I started in one direction and then found other options that were better. And so it shifted how I was using the software. And there's certain features that I probably have never, I don't even know they exist. But they exist, and it's no big deal because I don't necessarily need them right now. But I think the key is kind of being able to use it for your purposes and not trying to use it for everybody else's purposes.